What's up everybody, Chainsmokers here. Today I want to show you to make the stutter or flutter effect using LFO modulation. Now this sound has become very popular lately and the best way to describe it is just to show you it. So let me go ahead and jump right into it. Alright everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you are new here, please subscribe and also please give this video a like if you do enjoy it. Let me just show you the first example so you can hear the sound that I'm talking about. So basically it sounds like you have this chord that is repeated at a really fast rate and then all of a sudden gets slower. And that's achieved by using an LFO. So this example is similar to the chords in the song The Last Goodbye by Odesza. So what I'm doing here, I'm just going to open up Serum and show you how to achieve this. So basically this LFO here is assigned to the filter. And if I just go ahead and play these chords now, you can see how this filter is basically wobbling up and down. And so essentially the cutoff is following the path of this LFO and it's following it according to the rate. And then this envelope is assigned to the rate. So this rate knob starts out fast and then gets slower. So you could actually just automate the rate knob, or you could use something like an envelope to assign to your rate knob. But let me just go ahead and unassign this. And then I'll unassign this LFO, so we can hear just how it sounds without the LFO. So that's just with the filter. And basically I can create this shape however I want. So this is like a saw wave essentially, so I can assign this to the cutoff. I could maybe change the shape a bit. And I could automate this rate knob. Or I could use the envelope 1, assign it to the rate knob, and then I won't really need to automate it then. So the first way is you can assign your LFO to a filter, or you could actually just assign this LFO to the volume of your sound. So in order to do that, I have to assign the LFO to the level of both of my oscillators. So I'm going to adjust these. I just assign LFO to the level, adjust the modulation, and turn off the filter, or maybe just raise up the cutoff on the filter. And now that is a different way to create that stutter effect. I could also just change the shape of my alpha 1, so I could do something like a sine. I could do something like a square. And I can use a square and it's just a lot more choppy. So I'm just using a Serum for this example, but basically any other synth should have some type of LFO that you can use to modulate your filter or your volume. So now the second example that I want to show you is I have another Serum on another track, and basically this is just going to be a pluck sound. So if I just play this on my keyboard, you hear that it's just like a pluck. But what I can do is I can actually use the Arpeggiator device. I can turn this on, and let's say I have it on something like sync at 1/8, and I'm just playing a single note here in my MIDI all the way across. Now let's go ahead and just play this. Now we can see that it's essentially just playing that pluck over and over and over. So I could increase this rate, or I could turn off sync. And then play around with this rate knob. And so you can do the same thing here. I could show my automation and then automate this rate knob to get some cool effects. And then you can also just calculate if you want this actual repeating sound to be in time with your song. You can calculate the milliseconds to BPM. So you can find out, okay, what is a 1/16th note in milliseconds at 120 BPM? And then you can find out what the milliseconds are, and then you can just put that in automation. So you could have this sound go from something where it's out of time and then go into time. So maybe it does something where it's really fast and it slows down and it goes into time. So I've been hearing that used a lot lately in a lot of house tracks, especially tech house and deep house, which are really popular right now. So that's another way that you can create this stutter effect. Another way that I can do this is I can use a third-party plugin on top of a sample. So here's just a vocal sample here. And I actually just made that in Contact using a vocal synthesizer. I forget the name of it, but I just like made that in a Contact synth. And what I can do is I can put on something like Shaperbox. So here is Shaperbox, and Shaperbox, you have the volume shaper option. So I can go here, go to volume, and then I can create my LFO here and essentially do the same thing that I was doing within the Serum. And so watch right here where you have the LFO mode. I have it switch from Hertz to beat mode, and it switches from going to the Hertz mode into beat mode, and then it goes back into time. So it starts out of time and then it goes into time with the song or the session. And then I also have another shaper box that's adding like a sidechain pumping effect that is in time with the beat, so quarter note. And we can just check out the automation here. So essentially this is where I'm switching it from the free mode or the Hertz mode to beat mode. And then I think I have another option where we have the actual speed of the Hertz mode. So you can hear how it slows down. And I'll just play it with a metronome so you can hear it better. So obviously there you can hear it goes into time. So that was another way you could use Shaperbox. You just have to do some messing around with the automation, switching it from Hertz mode to beat mode if you don't want to calculate how many beats per minute are equal to a Hertz for a 8th note or 16th note, because you could also do that and then just try to match this line. One thing that I do find annoying about this automation though for Shaperbox is that right now I have it in Hertz mode. So if I go here, I have it in Hertz mode, but instead of it saying 17 Hertz on the automation, it says 0.56. So that doesn't really make sense, but you just have to play around with it if you do want to use the Shaperbox. So within Shaperbox, you have the volume shaper, and you can also use the filter mode. So you could do basically the exact same thing, but using the filter instead. So now another thing I could do is I could use sampler within Ableton. So I just dragged in this vocal sample into my sampler. And if I go to my modulation, we have our LFO options here. So I can turn on LFO, I can choose my type. So I can do a saw wave, I can choose Hertz or beat mode essentially. And then I can assign it to, let's say, my volume here. And I can essentially do the same thing. I can also assign it to my filter instead of my volume, but I got to go to filter/global and then turn on my filter, go back to the modulation here. And now I'm using the filter instead. So you don't really need third-party tools to do this. You can do all of these effects within Ableton. Now let's say I don't want to use the modulation within Sampler. I could actually use this plugin called AutoPan. So AutoPan, if I turn up the amount here, it's going to pan the sound back and forth to the left and right channel. But if I raise up my phase to 0 or 360, then it's not panning back and forth and it actually acts like an LFO. So then I could increase the rate here. I can choose my shape or adjust the shape a tiny bit. So that's another easy solution, is to use this AutoPan. There is another plugin called the LFO, and this is going to be a Max for Live device. And I believe you might have to download this from the Ableton website if you don't have it, but it's a free plugin. It's just a Max for Live device. So I could hit this map here and then hit the gain on a utility plugin. And now the LFO is assigned to the gain on my utility plugin. So you can see this gain is wobbling back and forth. But I don't want it to go all the way up to whatever the max dB. So I'm just going to do 50%. And that should take it to max 0 dB. And this is just a single note here. So let me go ahead and bypass this. A single note held out. So now if I turn on the utility plugin and the LFO, then we can get that stutter effect. And so you can adjust these parameters. You have some smoothing options and the amount options here. And I could also do the same thing. I could, instead of assigning it to my utility plugin, I could go to EQ8, map this to the frequency of a high cut filter, and let's check out how that sounds, but I'm going to raise this up to 100%. And so that is just another way to achieve the same effect. Ultimately, what it all comes down to create this stutter or flutter effect is using an LFO and assigning it to a filter or assigning it to the volume or gain of your sound. So I hope that going through these examples have helped you understand how to create this effect. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a like, and also please subscribe to my channel if you are not yet subscribed. And if you are interested in any of my snare preset packs, I'll put a link down below for you to check those out as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.